What kind of manager talks to an old man like that in front of other guests? Curtis Jennings whispered to himself, frozen at the edge of the motel lobby, watching the scene unfold. 3 hours earlier, Curtis had pulled up in a dusty gray sedan, wearing a faded hoodie, cargo pants, and a pair of thick glasses that made his eyes look smaller. His beard, usually trimmed, had grown out just enough to make him unrecognizable. Nobody here would guess he was the CEO who owned the 8-location roadside motel chain. He bought the company 7 years ago, after the original owner retired. It had been a passion project. Curtis knew what it was like growing up poor, sleeping in cheap motels with his mom when rent was too high. He promised himself his properties would always be clean, safe, and respectful to the people who needed them most. But lately, guest complaints had spiked at one particular location, this one, in a quiet town off the interstate. He'd heard about bugs, rude staff, even one report of a guest saying they were kicked out for asking for towels. The district manager claimed it was exaggerated. Curtis wasn't buying it. He'd never met the staff here in person. All hiring was done locally by the on-site manager. That's why he'd booked a room under the name Donnie Ramirez and walked in like any other traveler. Yeah, well, maybe plan your life better next time. The manager snapped at the old man standing at the front desk. The man was in his 70s, thin, shaking slightly, holding a crumpled $20 bill and a small duffel bag. I just need one night, he said. My card got declined, but I can pay cash now. I just need a place to sleep. Curtis leaned casually against the vending machine, listening. The manager, a tall man in his 30s with slicked-back hair and a name tag that said Devon, rolled his eyes. We don't do charity. You had your chance. I'm not reopening the system just for you. I've stayed here 4 times this year, the old man pleaded. Never caused trouble. I just need one night. Devon laughed, loud enough to make the 2 other guests in the lobby glance over. You think that earns you something? This is a business, not a shelter. Curtis stepped forward. Hey, he said, keeping his voice steady. I haven't checked in yet. Give him my room. I'll wait. Devon stared at him. You serious? Dead serious. The old man looked up at Curtis, eyes full of disbelief. You don't have to do that. It's fine, Curtis said. I can wait. Devon scoffed. Whatever. Don't blame me if you're still standing here in the cold when the system resets. He turned his back and walked into the office. Curtis helped the man sit down. You okay? The man nodded slowly. My name's Harold. I drove from Oregon. My daughter lives out here. She's sick. I've been trying to see her. Just ran out of money faster than I thought. Curtis pressed his lips together, heart heavy. You'll be all right tonight. I'll make sure of it. Devon returned and tossed a key card on the desk. Room 21. Don't lose it. Harold picked it up with trembling hands. Thank you, he whispered to Curtis. Curtis gave him a nod. I'll be here a few days. Let me know if you need anything. Once Harold disappeared down the hall, Devon looked Curtis up and down. You booking or just here to be a hero? Curtis held back the anger boiling in his chest. Name's Donnie. Yeah, I got a room booked. Devon tapped on the computer with one hand while texting on his phone with the other. Yeah. Room 17. It's around the back. Don't expect much. Cleaning staff quit last week, so it's just me and the night guy. You want towels? Grab M from the cart. Curtis took the key and walked out without saying a word. The room was worse than he expected. Dusty, smelled like mildew, trash still in the bin from whoever stayed before. As he sat on the edge of the bed, he rubbed his face with both hands. He'd let this place rot. He trusted the wrong people. He grabbed his notepad and started writing everything down. The way Devon spoke to Harold, the condition of the room, the fact there was no cleaning staff.
Why?
The next morning, Curtis wandered into the supply closet area and found a young woman stacking sheets. She looked startled. You're not supposed to be in here.
Sorry.
I just needed a towel. You work here? She nodded. Tessa Raines. I'm housekeeping. Well, the only one left. The other two quit after Mr. Devon yelled at them in front of guests. Curtis frowned. Why'd they get yelled at? He said they weren't fast enough and didn't look professional. But we were just trying to keep up. We begged for more help. He said we should be lucky to have jobs. Curtis looked at her. She was barely 20, exhausted, but still working. You always this busy? Tessa laughed under her breath. I cleaned 12 rooms yesterday. I get minimum wage. No sick days. Last week I worked with the flu. Curtis slowly nodded. You like it here? Not really. But I need the money. My brother's in high school. I help pay his lunch fees. He looked at her, then said quietly, Thanks for telling me. She blinked. Why do you care? Curtis gave a small smile. Just trying to understand the place better. He walked out. Back in his room, he sat at the tiny desk and stared at the peeling paint on the wall. The guilt was settling in deep now. If Tessa hadn't spoken up, he wouldn't have known how bad things were behind the front desk. Devon wasn't just rude. He was toxic. And Curtis had let it happen. He looked at the calendar. He had 2 more days here. And a lot more to see. Curtis woke just before dawn to the muffled sound of coughing outside his room. He cracked the door open and saw Tessa dragging a mop bucket across the concrete walkway, one hand pressed to her lower back. She stopped at the room beside his, crouched to unlock the supply closet, and pulled out a stack of pillowcases with a quiet sigh. Her shirt clung damply to her shoulders. No jacket, no gloves, not even proper work shoes, just worn sneakers with the soles peeling off. She hadn't seen him. He closed the door silently. By 7, he was in the lobby again. Devon wasn't around yet. Behind the desk sat a young man with headphones slung around his neck and a styrofoam container of half-eaten eggs balanced on a clipboard. He wore the motel uniform polo, but it was unbuttoned and untucked. Hey, Curtis said, stepping up. You the night guy? Yeah, the man said without looking up. You need something? Just some coffee. Curtis glanced at the empty pot behind the counter. None left. The man shrugged. Didn't make more. Curtis waited. All right. I'll come back later. As he turned, the man tapped his phone screen and resumed watching a video. Curtis walked through the breakfast area. The counters were greasy, the cereal bins half empty, with crumbs sprinkled across the surface. A single banana sat browning in a bowl. He looked for napkins. None. The dispenser was empty. By late morning, he was outside again, watching as guests checked out. A woman with 2 toddlers struggled to carry their luggage while the front desk remained unattended. Curtis stepped in, helping her down the stairs. She thanked him, then asked if he worked there. Not exactly, he said with a tight smile. By noon, Devon had returned. He marched in through the side entrance with fast food in one hand and a Bluetooth earpiece in the other. He didn't greet anyone. Instead, he walked past the front desk and straight into the office. Curtis followed. Hey, he said, stepping just inside the doorway. You got a second? Devon turned slowly. Yeah. There's a guest with 2 kids who just checked out. She needed help with her bags. Front desk was empty. I'm not a bellhop, Devon said, sitting down. And I don't schedule extra staff for checkout. It's not my problem if people can't manage their own stuff. Curtis watched him open a burger wrapper. Your night guy didn't refill coffee either. Devon took a bite and chewed slowly. Yeah, well, I told corporate months ago we need better people. They keep sending me kids who'd rather TikTok than work. You hired them, right? Devon looked up. I do what I can with what I get. You think I want to work 12-hour days? Curtis didn't answer. He stepped out and walked around the building to the laundry shed. The door was propped open with a cinder block. Inside, Tessa was sorting towels into piles, arms moving like clockwork. A small fan buzzed on a shelf, barely cutting the heat. She noticed him and stood straighter. Need something? Just checking on things, Curtis said. You always do laundry too?
Yeah.
Devon says it's cheaper than hiring someone else. I just rotate between cleaning and this. You get a break? Tessa hesitated. Sometimes if I finish early, but not lately. Curtis glanced at the piles of sheets still left. You ever talk to anyone above Devon? Her eyebrows drew together. Why would I? If something's wrong. She looked at him for a long moment. Nobody listens. We had a leak in room 9 for a week. I told Devon. He said, put a towel under it. I told the maintenance number on the company website. Nothing happened. Curtis nodded once. Thanks. He left her to work and walked back toward the front office. On the way, he passed room 12 and noticed the door slightly ajar. A cleaning cart sat unattended outside. He knocked lightly, then pushed the door open. Inside, a man in his 20s was sprawled across the bed, scrolling through his phone, one shoe off. His name badge read Jared. You all right? Curtis asked. Jared sat up quickly. Oh yeah, just taking 5. On the clock. I mean, yeah, but I've been on since 8. Only took this one break. Curtis looked around the room. The bathroom hadn't been touched. Trash still overflowed from the bin. You're supposed to be cleaning this one? I was getting to it. You knew. Been here 2 months, Jared said, standing now. Honestly, I'm probably quitting soon.
Devouest impossible.
He keeps changing the schedule, without notice. Last week I came in, and he said I was late, but he'd moved my shift without telling me. Curtis leaned against the doorframe. What about the other staff? Just me and Tessa on cleaning. That's it. And she does twice what I do. I'm not proud of it, man, but I'm not killing myself for minimum wage. Devon doesn't care, anyway. Curtis nodded slowly. All right. Good luck with the room. He walked back out, heart sinking deeper. By evening, a new guest arrived, a middle-aged black man in a button-down shirt and slacks. Curtis watched as he approached the desk with a printed reservation in hand. Devon was behind the counter. Welcome, the guest said politely. I've got a booking for tonight under Lewis Carter. Devon didn't look up. What site? Direct through the motel website. Devon typed something, then frowned. Don't see it. I have the confirmation here. You sure you didn't book for the wrong date? No. Lewis said patiently. It's today. You can see it right here. Devon shot him a glance, then turned the monitor slightly. Well, nothing I can do if it's not in our system. You can call support? Devon sighed. I don't have time to chase down every lost booking. You want to pay again? I might have a room. Lewis narrowed his eyes. You might? Yeah, but I'd need a card. And I'm not giving you the same rate if you didn't book properly. Curtis stepped forward. Actually, he's right. I booked through the same system yesterday. It's got issues sometimes, but the reservations go through. Devon looked at him. You work here now? Curtis stepped beside Lewis. No, just someone who believes in basic decency. Devon laughed under his breath.
All right, fine.
I'll check again. He typed for a minute, then clicked something. His face shifted.
Huh.
There it is. Lewis didn't respond. He just took his key when it was finally handed over and walked toward the elevators in silence. Curtis followed him out. Sorry you had to deal with that. Lewis looked at him, tired but composed. It happens more than you think. Curtis nodded once. Noted. That night, Curtis sat in his room staring at the notebook. He added 3 names to a growing list: Tessa, Jared, Lewis. One thing was clear. This wasn't just about bad customer service. It was about disrespect, disregard, and a manager who acted like the people walking through the door didn't matter. He stared at the key card on the table for a long time, then made a decision. Tomorrow, he'd stop watching. Tomorrow, he'd start acting. Curtis stood outside room 21, the one Harold had stayed in. The door was open, A yellow housekeeping cart parked nearby. Inside, Tessa was stripping the bed, her motions slower than the day before. She looked like she hadn't slept. "You all right?" Curtis asked from the doorway. She turned, startled, then nodded. "Just tired." "Devon doubled my list," said Jared, called out. Curtis stepped into the room. "He didn't. I saw him yesterday." Tessa paused, her hands gripping the sheet. "Yeah? Then Devon's lying again." Curtis said nothing. She grabbed a bundle of linens and headed for the cart. "You ever think about quitting?" he asked. "Every day," she said over her shoulder. "But I don't have that luxury." He watched her walk off, dragging her cart with both hands, her shoulders hunched. Inside the room, the window unit rattled faintly. Curtis looked around. A cigarette burn marked the edge of a nightstand. The curtains were stained with something he didn't want to guess at. He made a note. Then another one. "Jared missing without notice," manager lied. He returned to the lobby just past noon. Devon was behind the counter again, leaned back in the office chair. A half-eaten sandwich sat on a napkin next to the register. Curtis walked up. "Busy day." Devon didn't look away from his phone. "They're all busy." "Jared not coming in?" "Didn't feel like showing up, apparently." "Guy's useless anyway." "Still, that's one less person for cleaning." "Not my problem. They figure it out." Curtis nodded. "You ever help out when they're short?" Devon finally looked at him. "You think that's my job? I run this place. I don't scrub toilets." Curtis's jaw tensed. "You run it, but you don't support your team?" "I support them by giving them work. If they can't handle it, they can leave. I'll find someone else." "You think that's working?" Devon's eyes narrowed. "You got a lot of opinions for someone who just wandered in off the road." "Maybe I care more than you do." Devon laughed, short and bitter. "You want to run this dump? Be my guest." Curtis stared him down. "All right." He turned and walked directly into the back office. Devon shot to his feet. "Hey, you can't be back there." Curtis ignored him. He opened the drawer where the employee files were stored. He picked up the phone on the desk and dialed the corporate line. A quiet moment passed, then someone picked up. "This is Curtis Jennings."
I saw.
"I'm at the Route 9 location. I need the regional supervisor and HR on a three-way now." Devon moved behind him, face pale. "Wait, what?" Curtis turned. "Sit down." Devon stood frozen. Curtis didn't repeat himself. The line clicked. "This is Sheila from HR." "Put me on speaker," Curtis said. "Devon's here." There was a pause, then the voice said, "Go ahead." "I've spent the last 2 days undercover on this property. I've documented staff mistreatment, manipulation of schedules, guest discrimination, and a total breakdown of operational standards. I've watched a manager deny booked guests their rooms, lie about staffing, and mock guests in need. Effective immediately, Devon is terminated. HR will be sending a formal letter. Escort will be arranged through local law enforcement if needed." Devon stepped back, his voice cracking. "You can't do that." "I just did," Curtis said, hanging up the phone. A long silence followed. Devon stood stiffly, then grabbed his keys from the desk and walked out without another word. Curtis stared at the empty chair for a moment, then turned to the computer. He pulled up the schedule. One person listed for housekeeping. Nothing for maintenance. No front desk coverage for the overnight shift. He picked up the company phone and dialed again. "This is Jennings. I need 2 floaters from the central office to Route 9 by tomorrow morning. Put them in guest rooms if you have to, but they're staying until I say otherwise." He hung up, then printed a new schedule for the next 2 days. He assigned himself to the front desk for the next 6 hours. By late afternoon, word had spread. Tessa arrived at the front desk, unsure if she should even speak. Curtis gave her a reassuring nod. "He's gone," he said simply. She blinked. "Gone. Fired. Effective immediately." She looked down, then back up. So what happens now? Now we fix things. That evening, Curtis worked the desk as guests arrived. A couple from Indiana thanked him for the fresh coffee. An older woman asked for help with her luggage, and he carried it up himself. He made sure every guest had what they needed. At one point, he left the counter briefly and found Tessa sitting on the bench outside, her hands folded in her lap. "You all right?" he asked. She looked up. "I didn't think this would ever change. I thought people like him always got away with it." "They don't," Curtis said. "Not if someone's paying attention." She nodded slowly. "Is it okay if I clock out soon?" "I finished my rooms." "Of course. Take tomorrow off, too." "Paid." Her eyes widened. "Really? You've earned it." The next morning, Curtis was up before sunrise. The floaters from Central arrived around 8, one for maintenance, one for housekeeping. They were both experienced and understood the urgency. Curtis gave them a quick rundown and had them jump in immediately. By 10, Jared returned, looking sheepish. "I heard about Devon." Curtis looked up from the desk. "You walked off the job without telling anyone. That doesn't fly here." "I know," Jared said quietly. "I was just burned out." He was making up shifts, talking down to everyone. "I didn't know who to call." "Then you call me," Curtis said. "Starting now, you do the work, you do it right, and you talk to your team. You want another chance." Jared hesitated.
Yeah, I do.
"Then earn it." Curtis handed him a fresh uniform shirt from the back and pointed him toward the cart. By noon, the lobby felt different. Guests were smiling. The breakfast area was restocked and clean. Every room had been checked by the new maintenance floater. Leaks were noted. Broken lights replaced. Curtis stepped out into the parking lot and saw Harold again, sitting on the bench with a coffee in hand. He looked stronger today, more rested. He smiled when he saw Curtis. "You again," he said. Curtis smiled back. "Me again. I stayed another night. That girl Tessa, she gave me a voucher. Said it was covered." "It was," Curtis said. "You're welcome to stay one more if you need." Harold nodded, then looked out at the road. "Funny thing, when someone treats you like a person, you start to feel like one again." Curtis sat down beside him. "That's exactly the point." They sat in silence for a while. No words needed. Just the warm sun, the quiet hum of the air unit, and the sound of a business finally starting to feel human again. Curtis stood, looked out across the lot, and made one final note in his head. Never let it get this bad again. Curtis leaned against the front desk, arms crossed, watching the lobby fill with an unfamiliar kind of quiet. Not silence, activity still moved through the space, but a quiet rooted in calm. No raised voices.
No tensión.
Just the steady rhythm of a place trying to right itself. Tessa had taken her paid day off. She had texted Curtis a photo that morning, her younger brother holding a sandwich from the diner down the road. A simple thing, but the smile on the kid's face was worth more than most performance reviews Curtis had ever read. The two floaters from Central, Marcus in maintenance and Elena in housekeeping, were easing into the daily work. Neither asked for shortcuts. They logged every issue they found, labeled each room clearly, and coordinated with Jared, who had returned with a quieter energy, no longer distracted, no longer defensive. He moved room by room, checking Elena's lists, asking questions when unsure. It wasn't flawless, but it was progress. Curtis remained on the clock, behind the desk, handling walk-ins and phone calls. A woman came in around noon to ask if she could speak to someone about an overcharge from the prior month. Devon had told her there was nothing to be done. Curtis asked her to sit, pulled up the system, and personally refunded the charge. She left with a printed receipt and a surprised thank you. Moments like that built trust one at a time. Around 2, the district supervisor, Clay, arrived from the regional office. A sturdy man in his 50s with silver hair and a pressed button down, he stepped through the front entrance and scanned the lobby. "You're not in your usual office," he said as he approached the desk. "Had to see things for myself," Curtis replied without looking up. Clay folded his arms. "I had no idea things were this off." "You should've," Curtis said plainly. "You've been assigned to this region for 4 years." Clay's jaw tensed. "We had performance reports. None of this showed up. Because you were reading numbers, not walking properties." Curtis stepped out from behind the desk. "We're not just dealing with poor leadership. We're dealing with negligence, yours included." Clay shifted his weight. "I understand. I'll take accountability." "No," Curtis pointed at the guest log. "You'll take a demotion. Starting today, you're stripped of your district oversight. You'll transition to support operations under Lisa Harmon. She'll monitor your work for the next 6 months. After that, we'll reevaluate." Clay nodded once slowly. "Understood." Curtis didn't wait for more. "I'll need a replacement for this location. Someone experienced. Someone grounded. You'll help interview." "I'll start the shortlist," Clay said. "Good," Curtis replied. "You've got until Friday." Clay left without another word. Curtis returned to the front desk just as Marcus walked in from the maintenance shed, holding a clipboard. "Just wrapped the inspection on the west wing," Marcus said. "4 rooms with faulty AC. 1 unit's blowing hot air. I can patch it for now, but 2 probably need replacements." Curtis scanned the clipboard. "Order the parts. Put the rooms out of service until fixed." Marcus looked surprised. "That'll drop occupancy." "Temporarily," Curtis said. "Better that than guests leaving angry." Marcus nodded. "All right. I'll call the supplier." Curtis turned to the computer and flagged the affected rooms. It would hurt revenue for a week, maybe more. But it was necessary. The brand had already taken too many hits. A delivery van arrived around 3, bringing new linens, toiletries, and first aid kits. Curtis stepped out to meet the driver, signed the manifest, and helped roll the bins into the supply room. Inside, Elena was sorting clean sheets into labeled bins. "These the new ones?" she asked. "Fresh from Central," Curtis said. "You'll see the difference." Elena opened one bin and ran her hand over the folded sheets. "These actually feel clean. We changed suppliers." "Good call," she said, then paused. "Any idea how long we're posted here?" 3 weeks minimum, Curtis replied. "Longer if needed." "I'm fine with that," she said. "This place has good bones." Curtis gave a small nod, then moved to the laundry area. Jared was there, loading towels into the industrial washer. His movements were more focused now, his eyes clearer. "You holding up?" Curtis asked. "Yeah," Jared replied. "I didn't expect to still be here, honestly. You've got one more chance. Don't waste it." Jared looked at him. "I won't." Curtis left him to it and headed toward the back office. He closed the door behind him and sat at the desk, opening his laptop. Reports from the other properties were coming in. Most were stable. A few needed attention, but nothing close to what he'd seen here. He drafted a memo to the executive team, flagging the changes being implemented. No fluff, no corporate spin. Just facts. Staff were overworked, leadership had failed, and guests had suffered. It ended with a clear directive: every regional manager would be required to conduct surprise walkthroughs at each property twice per quarter.
No exceptions.
By evening, the motel had settled into something resembling order. Curtis stepped out to the parking lot and scanned the property. The lights were functioning. The trash bins weren't overflowing. The walkway had been swept. Small things, but they mattered. A man in a flannel coat stood near the vending machine, holding a soda. Curtis recognized him. He'd checked in earlier, said he was headed to a job interview the next morning. He caught Curtis's eye. "You the guy who's been running the desk?" "Today, yeah," Curtis replied. The man nodded. "Place feels different. Used to stop here on my delivery route. It was rough back then." Curtis just said, "We're working on it." "Well, it shows," the man said, tipping his head. "Thanks." As the sun dipped behind the trees, Curtis walked the perimeter one last time. He passed room 21, Harold's room. It was empty now. The old man had left that morning, leaving a note at the front desk. "Thank you for treating me like I mattered." Curtis slipped the note into his back pocket and kept walking. Later that night, he sat alone in the office, lights dimmed, the hum of the vending machines echoing faintly through the walls. He opened the personnel files, starting with Tessa's. He signed off on a raise and a permanent full-time offer with benefits. Jared's file followed. He marked it for probationary review, with a development plan attached. He closed the drawer and leaned back. This wasn't the kind of work that made headlines. No ribbon cutting, no press release. But it was the kind of work that mattered. Curtis stood, turned off the office light, and stepped into the quiet hallway.
Room doors were closed.
The night air was crisp. A few stars peeked through the clouds above. As he locked the front office and turned toward his car, he made a silent promise to himself. Never again would he lead from a distance. Never again would he wait for reports to tell him what he should have seen with his own eyes. Because leadership wasn't built in boardrooms. It was built right here in parking lots, behind front desks, and in the tired hands of workers who kept the lights on when no one was watching. And from now on, he'd be watching.